Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies, bringing you the Thrive Challenge for this week, our way to help you scale to 7 figures and beyond. What we're looking at today is the balanced portfolio approach. I've been working with many entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and nonprofit organizations, etc. And when we look at the core gist of what they're trying to do, they're really attempting to make a resilient organization. And one of the ways we can craft a resilient organization is through the creation of this balanced strategic portfolio. And so as we're designing, as we're thinking through, as we are looking how to optimize our organizational outcomes and results, this portfolio approach is extremely helpful because it helps us understand, A, what are we doing currently? B, what do we want to be doing in the future? C, what's our sweet spot? D, what could we potentially delegate, i.e. create a partner, create a 1099 relationship, get an employee, etc., to deliver for us? Or how do we need to shift to ultimately optimize our results and outcomes? So today we start through looking and beginning with the end in mind. And one of the first things we wish to do is look at the long-term results or outcomes that you want to be achieving. If you're not here yet, or you don't have that, or you have somewhat older information, not a problem. There's 5 major areas that we want to be focused on. So you can either pull out your strategic plan, pull out your annual business plan, pull out your thoughts, or just grab a fresh new piece of paper and we'll start here from scratch, helping you to scale your business to 7 figures and beyond. Again, the first step is examining and envisioning what's in the realm of possible for you. What do you have a hunger for in your belly? What's a fire in your belly? Is it about the impact you want to have across the globe? Is it about the impact that you want to have within your local community? Is it about the revenues that you want to generate? You are all about clarity, alignment, and performance from a monetary, fiscal efficiency, revenue maximization standpoint, and that's fine. We just need to understand what's driving you. And it doesn't have to just be one thing. It can be both of them in parallel, and we create offerings that will allow you to achieve both. So typically we're looking at impact that you want to be having through the release of your products and or services and or IP and thought leadership, and the revenues you want to be deriving from such. We don't want to look at all of the different slices of the pie at this point. What we want to be looking at is your vision in aggregate. So for us, at the end of 2023, at the end of 2024, at the end of 2025, if you're a real long-term, long-range planner, take it out to 2030. But I focused on 1 year, 3 year, maybe 5 years, especially if you're in your early stages, maybe of maturation and internal growth and organizational growth that you're going to be going through and be able to capitalize on in your out years. So again, long-term results, we want to be quantifying it from a prospect of impact and revenues. Then we want to be examining what is our margins, right? So as we look at those long-term results, what is the profitability, the aggregate profitability that we want to create for our organizations across our product and solution sets? Again, we're not slicing and dicing each thing. We're just thinking about this from an aggregate perspective so we can reverse engineer backwards to get you where you stated you wanted to be at that end of that annual cycle. Then we also want to be looking at growth. There is growth in your market. There is growth in your particular segment for new innovations. And there's, as well as perhaps you have a community and you need and want member growth, brand growth, etc. So growth is a multifaceted animal in this case, but you envision what growth means to you at this stage in your business formation and or maturation. And then most importantly is, what is the populations that you want to be serving? We have a lot of conversation around target market, most desirable client, etc. And so if you can articulate the attributes of whom the populations you want to be serving, again, then we reverse engineer back into you being able to identify, engage, collaborate, and ultimately serve them with in some way, shape, or form. The next part of our balanced strategic portfolio is really this delineation between active revenue streams and passive revenue streams. I want to make a statement in here that you can have a balanced portfolio approach for your entire life. And that's not the scope of today's conversation. The scope of today's conversation is for one or more of the entities that you're running, right? So I would highly suggest you have this balanced portfolio approach for your life. What are your different revenue streams going to be across? And then what is that ultimately going to help you optimize from a life outcomes perspective? But today we're focused on the businesses or organizations that you are in charge of leading, growing, it's making successful, etc. So we're going to have two, an active set of revenue streams and a passive set of revenue streams within our portfolio. Sometimes I think the normal ratio, if you will, is 1 to 2 active revenue streams equal to 1 passive revenue streams, because they can be interrelated. So 1 to 2 active revenue streams is mapped to at least 1 passive revenue stream, potentially more. And why do we do this? Because you can only scale so far until you reach a point where you hit the performance wall, and then you need to find more resources to help you scale to the next level. Oftentimes going through this balanced portfolio planning approach will help you understand where you're going to need those resources next, so that you don't have to hit the wall, so that you can find the perfect partner or delegate before you have to experience some of the challenges that go through scaling past your capacity. So again, on the active revenue streams in our balanced portfolio approach, we're going to be looking at the products, the actual products that you design and create and field, whatever type of product that is. What we want you to do is we want you to enumerate them in some way, shape, or form. We want you to put the total amount of revenue that you're currently generating from each of those products, and we want you to enumerate the amount of margin that you're generating from each and every one of those revenue sources. From a services standpoint, we look at perhaps there's workshops that you're offering, perhaps there's classes that you're offering, perhaps you're doing accountability or functional or growth related mentoring. Perhaps you're doing ideation on the products that that organization, that client, that customer can potentially bring to its customers and clients. And then there's consulting services. How are you enabling their organization to move further, faster in some way, shape, or form? So active revenue streams, products, and or services. We want your current amount of revenues you're generating. We want the current amount of margins that you're generating from each of those. So it could be a short list, a long list, but we want you to identify with clarity each and every single one of those, because when we go to downstream optimization activities, we're going to look at where are you hitting it out of the park, where are you hitting your baseline, and where are you underperforming across those product and services suite, at least according to your initial stake in the ground from a planning perspective. And then we're going to look at how can we harness that information to optimize. So again, products and or services, what is the revenues, what's the actually two in that category, what's the percentage of revenues you want to be deriving from that product and or service, and then what's the margins. Then we look at the passive revenue streams, and this is where a lot of people aren't necessarily at yet, or they started in the passive revenue stream and they don't have any active to be able to tie or bolster the value proposition to. So we really want to create this balanced approach, build and reuse a passive revenue stream, build once, reuse often, a passive revenue stream to adjunctly add value to an active revenue stream, or to create one or more of the steps in your service delivery and fulfillment funnel in the long term. So what can we do here? We can do thought leadership. We can create blogs. We can create articles. We can create white papers. We can publish them in different forces. We can, different forums. We can publish them as a paid subscription in a member-only journal, etc. Right? So that the most important thing is, how are you building your brand around the products and or services that you offer, and how are you reaching the populations that you stated you wanted to serve in step one? Okay, so we're creating greater clarity, and we're making sure we have alignment with the core populations that we stated we wanted to serve. That can come in the forms of thought leadership as a way to drive awareness, and then a way to drive engagement, and perhaps also a way to drive collaboration to heighten and strengthen your value proposition. The next is, what type of intellectual property? So we can create curriculums and create courses, create books, create handbooks, create SOPs, create other things, and brand them, and then put a charge around them and make sure that you're putting intellectual property protections around them, so that they can continue in and on through their life cycle, serving the populations, again, that you've identified as most important. And it also enables you to have a licensing construct for partnering with other organizations if they wish to use your intellectual property. Next would be virtual courses, right? So this is build once, reuse often. That could be an outline of a curriculum, or it could be an actual virtual course that you chunk in some manner and either host yourself or host through some third-party entity. The next is through partnerships. This is where we want to look and pull from the portfolio of skills of Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. As soon as we know we want to, we come up with the ideas, we use other resources to field those ideas. That's a passive revenue stream. We create it once, right? We ideate, we envision, we frame it out, we outsource it for fulfillment to some other partner, allowing us to delegate the operationalization of that and the metrics, success, etc. And then we, of course, have a fee, either a partnership agreement, a consulting agreement, some type of revenue sharing, etc. And then another example of this passive revenue stream is this creation of referral agreements, of referral partnerships, where you are either providing referrals to other businesses through the populations that you're driving awareness and engagement with to other parties for information, products and services, or fulfillment purposes, or vice versa. Some other organization or entity is driving awareness engagement of your products and or services. And again, some type of revenue sharing is going on. And then last but not least, we have a step 4. We've done our visioning, we've created active and passive revenue streams that meets the vision. We've quantified it according to current state revenues, percentage of revenues, margin with regard to cost versus revenues generated. And now we either find, again, we're above our expectations, we're at our expectations, our planning forecast for that particular product and our services, or we're below. And then for all of those, we need to make a decision periodically. Do we continue? Do we continue down that path? Do we tweak something? Do we delete something? And so our portfolio, our balanced strategic portfolio, is constantly examining for, do we just need to tweak something to get it up to baseline expectations, or was something in our assumptions incorrect? And we no longer want to pursue this because it's not adding value and it's not adding revenue, and it's disabling us from harnessing that revenue resources to expanding something that is working at a higher level. So again, optimization. One way we can do this is through minimal viable products. If we have an idea for a new product or a new service, or if you're just starting out, we run through this minimal viable product. What's the least amount of work or structure we can wrap around an offering before we get it out to our populations for consumption and use in some way, shape, or form? And then how do we really harness the power of voice of the customer to continue to refine that over time and amplify the results that we're achieving? The next is a scenario analysis. And here we're very formulaically examining, again, each of those products and services, the revenue that's being generated, the expenses associated with a percentage, and we're tweaking the percentages to amplify in a scenario manner. I want 3 of X, 2 of Y, 1 of Z, and the other one, I want 5, 3, 10, right? We're looking at different scenarios of how we aggregate to maximize either our revenues or our impact, or both, right? Ultimately, it's usually about maximizing them both, using the margins and the total revenue derived as indicators for whether we're on the right track or not. Again, so scenario analysis, very quantitative. You're basically just doing the math with regards to looking at the margins, looking at the total revenue generated, and then maximizing those things that you feel strongly about wanting to carry forward in out years, right? We even if you're, it's really up to you at this point how this portfolio shapes out. If it's more impact and less revenue, then you look at it through that lens. If it's more revenue and less impact, then you look at it through that lens. If it's equally, then you create scenarios that allow you to balance that most specifically. But the most important things is you get a better handle on where you're at from a total revenue portfolio percentage of that offering and the margins affiliated with it, so you can see how you can best slice and dice it going forward to your organizational advantage. The next thing is we can do impact surveys. So say impact is equal or greater than the monetary revenues, because you have another arm where you're generating, you have a cash cow, so to speak, right? So here we want to look at how can our organization through this offering generate more impact to the populations we said we want to serve. And so we go about doing this through surveys, through forums, through direct engagement. Again, can be easy as a social media post, a quiz, an invitation to engage on some question. Here's my question for the week. Here's my question for the day. Here's my question for the month. You know, stakeholders, I'd love to hear your perspective. You're outside of the normal populations I serve, or you're right in my populations I serve sweet spot. I want to gain more information as to how you would value X or Y or Z, right? So impact surveys to enable you to generate greater going forward, greater amounts going forward. And we have a referral network. So who do we know in our network that would perhaps be our advocate, our champion? Again, it's a way of partnering to help drive awareness and engagement of your activities. It gives you your organization and the work that you do veracity. It also drives greater awareness, global awareness, if that's what you're seeking. And it helps you strategically think through where are the aggregation points for the populations I want to serve? Where are they upstream? Where are they downstream of me serving them? How can I potentially partner or gain access to a champion and advocate for a referral perspective and do that once and be able to reach many? So again, it's looking at how your favored populations are served upstream and downstream for your organizational services, and then engaging the willing to be a part of your referral network. Again, this may be some type of revenue share or some really tit for tat, if you will, type of exchange for goods or value. It's really up to you how you construct that. It's more important that you have them in place to amplify your results and outcomes going forward, because they can be your voice, they can add veracity, they can strengthen your brand, and they can help you drive ongoing business. Again, the same with brand recognition. If you have the champions and the advocates, brand recognition will be expanded through their actions, but there's also things we need to be thinking about, especially if you're moving from a local through heightened levels of domestic and into global markets with your products or services. You have to choose what you want to be known for. You want to look at the channels that are in use by the populations you want to serve. You want to examine your budget with regard to activities and actions in this area. Publicity, marketing, advertising, social media, again, referrals, partnerships, etc., to heighten your brand recognition at whatever level, local, domestic, global, that's most important to you at this stage of your maturation and growth. So again, balanced strategic portfolio approach. Envision the outcomes you want to be achieving 1 year, 3 year, 5 years out. Small and solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small, maybe 1 to 3 years. Then we look at plotting and enumerating every active revenue stream, every passive revenue stream, the actual revenues that are being generated, the percentage of total revenues applied to that particular offering, and the amount of margins that we're producing from that in aggregate. Then we look at, am I over? Am I at? Am I under? And then how can ultimately I optimize into the sweet spot of the outcomes I stated that I wanted to achieve in step one, using MVPs, scenario analysis, impact mechanisms, referral networks, and heightened brand recognition, all to enable your ongoing and greater organizational success. Again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies. I hope this session has been of value to you. Please connect with me at CEO@GBLINNOVStratLLC.com if we can help you create a balanced portfolio to enable your organization to go further, faster on your journey to 7 figures plus success. We'll join you next week with more tips, techniques, and tools to help you achieve your goals.